Every other day, Donald Trump will be like, we have gotten $5 quintillion from Apple. Tim Apple called me yesterday, said we're donating $5 quintillion. Numbers like you've never heard. Numbers you've never seen before. Everything's computer. Every day, billionaires are calling me saying, Mr. President, I'm going to give you $7 trillion. That's right. Note you, what is this? Your enemy is in China is global capital. China represents 90% of global capital, making it the world's second largest economy. It is also the second in the world in terms of total number of billionaires. This goes back to the same paradigm of, oh, China is capitalist, actually. Okay, why don't we do Chinese-style development here then? No, that would be communist. It's always the same. It's literally the same. I'm like, okay, great. China is capitalist. We're capitalists. Let's do China. They're like, oh, no, that would be communism. Why would we ever do that? That's communism. It's also funny because it's like, it goes back to the same dynamic of like, China is going to collapse any moment now. Okay, China's going to collapse any moment now. They're socialists. They're socialists. Okay, we've decided that China is actually cheating. They're too good. Their socialism is too good for our capitalist system. It's cheating. It's cheating. It's cheating. It's cheating. They're cheating. Okay, how about we cheat? And here, remember when I told you like a lot of quote unquote intelligent HD having political economy understanding people will consistently talk about China cheating? What they mean when they say China is cheating is that China has a command economy and it is impossible to compete against a command economy. God forbid we have that same thing here in the United States of America. No, we can't do that because that would harm the interests of capital. This goes back to the argument that I'm making, which is that supranational capital is the most powerful element here. That is the enemy here. It is not China, because if we wanted to truly have a free market, okay, it was a real free market, and China was cleaning out, absolutely destroying us by outcompeting us in the free market, we would look to what they're doing and then implement it here, which would require us to have central planning and be invested in long-term stability, have long-term goals of both internal development and external development. Even the One Belt, One Road initiative in and of itself is a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. But of course, we don't want we don't want to compete against China. We want to continue the system where the dollar is the reserve currency of the entire globe, where all global trade is done on the dollar. So we still have that level of control, while also simultaneously we want to be able to cut Chinese manufacturing and just rip it away from them, and Chinese development and rip it away from them, because they outcompeted us all at the behest of capital. You cannot talk like this if you were in China right now against the government. You know that, bro? Yes, I know, dude. I know that. I know. Wait, what, bro? They literally shoot people in the back of their head execution style if they speak against their government. Y'all want that? The f are you talking about? Hey, man, I fantasized about something happening in China that's not happening. Do you want that here? That's so stupid. First of all, I wouldn't be speaking like this if I was in China. I would be a regime-pilled defender of the Communist Party of China in the glorious People's Republic of China. Okay? So, you know, I wouldn't be concerned with the free speech limitations there. That's number one. Number two, as long as I'm here, I do criticize the Chinese government's practices on that front regardless. Except the issue here is, as American hegemony ends on the global stage, we are finding out right now in this very moment that free speech wasn't so free anyway here in the United States of America either. You got ICE literally saying, if you have dangerous ideas crossing into American borders, we will shut it down. Yeah. If you talk about Israel being bad in China, they actually black bag you in the middle of the street and then ship you into a slave colony in El Salvador. Oh, wait, we are doing that. We're doing that right now. My bad. That's not China. That's America. But hey, keep coping.
Back to 2001.
Anyway, Let's talk about this. Okay, let's talk about this. You will understand what I've been saying over and over again. When a PhD economist says China is cheating and not playing by the rules of global trade, rules that we have designed, rules that we have designed ourselves, the Western world has designed, America especially. What they mean is China has a command economy, and it's impossible to compete against a command economy because they can just heavily subsidize the shit out of their manufacturing in an effort to outcompete capitalist countries.
After it was admitted to the World Trade Organization, China cheated in multiple ways. China continues to subsidize its industries in all kinds of ways. It engages in unfair competition. It does things that look to me, at least, like dumping. And it's done this for a quarter of a century nearly. What do you do to stop that, to check that kind of behavior of gaming a free trade system if it's not tariffs? Or is there nothing you can do? You just have to live with it?
Can I ask a question? Could every student here who's paying $10,000 or more in tuition raise their hands?
No, we don't have tuition.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. That was the point that I was making. So you have no tuition. Why do you have no tuition? You have no tuition because somehow you have succeeded in mobilizing funds that have enabled you to admit students without paying.
Look at this socialist, by the way. Okay? Look at this socialist, chat. The third world is Larry H. Summers, former United States Secretary of the Treasury, Harold H. Summers. I just need you to understand. That's fucking Larry Summers saying what he's about to say.
So students get the benefit of an...
We used to subsidize our industries. We do. There are rules for how much you can subsidize your industries technically in global trade. The problem is, or rather, what we do when we subsidize our industries is because they're capitalist enterprise that are not completely maintained and controlled by a command economy. When we subsidize our fucking industries, it surely lowers prices a little bit, but a big chunk of those subsidies still, in one way, shape, or form, end up in the hands of capitalists. That's the problem. It doesn't actually go directly into lowering prices, which is precisely the reason why America turns around and goes, wait a minute, you're not supposed to subsidize to actually cheapen the fucking the output. You can't subsidize shit to make it so that it's incredibly affordable. What are you doing? We subsidize everything, chat. What are you talking about?
Education without paying. Do you think that if the University of Texas or Harvard or Rice called this an unfair practice because it put them at a competitive disadvantage, that would be a reasonable thing? Or do you think that it's a good thing that you're able to provide free college educations, and it would be even better if more people could provide free college educations? I kind of have the latter view. So if China wants to sell us things at really low prices, and the transaction is we get solar collectors that help make there be less global climate change, or we get batteries that we can put in electric cars, and we send them pieces of paper that we print.
I mean, he's 100% correct about this scheme, by the way. This is the design. This is the design of American-backed global trade. He's just being radically honest about it. That's it. He's not like pro-China by any means. He is not in any way, shape, or form saying that it's a good thing that China is doing this or whatever. He is simply explaining what the system currently looks like and to constantly fucking cry foul about the subsidies when Chinese affordable manufacturing is the way that we have designed this game. The only problem here is that China has developed into becoming a competitive superpower. That's the issue. If China was still poor, if China was this neoliberal shithole, okay, then we wouldn't have any issues. We'd be like, oh, great. What do you mean? China is marginally improving the living conditions of their working class 0.000001% year over year. That's fantastic. But that's not what happened. Through command economy, through 15-year plans, through rapid urbanization, through rapid development, China was able to become a competitive superpower. That is the issue. They didn't play ball. How dare you? How dare you have a fucking vision? How dare you actually truly work to uplift your citizens? That's unacceptable. That's literally this entire conversation. That's it. The global south is not supposed to develop. The global south is supposed to never become a competitive power in the global stage. That you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that as a developing nation. If China was still like India in terms of in terms of its governance, then we would never in a million fucking years complain about China. We'd be like, it's great. It's great. It's awesome. We'd be talking about how bountiful free trade has been for China, as we do to this day about India.
Think that's a good deal for us or a bad deal for us? I kind of think it's a good deal for us. So the idea, the way you frame the question, which is that this is cheating and is there a way to deal with the problem of cheating, largely wrong. It's just like, was it unfair to dentists when fluoride water got invented? It was terrible for the dental business. Terrible. Far fewer.
Isn't that the fundamental benefit of being a totalitarian system? You can influence the country for good or bad, unchecked. Yeah, except look at all of the other totalitarian systems that have something very different in comparison to China. Many developing nations have totalitarian systems in one way, shape, or form. And yet, we don't have these same considerations for those totalitarian nations. You are inevitably going to arrive at my conclusion here, okay? Which is what I'm stressing. The only difference between China and the other developing nations, okay, if you want to call it totalitarian, the only difference in and of itself with China in comparison to other places is that China has a command economy and a vision for development that they've actually followed through on. That's it. And they've seen much success in this process. Oh, it always goes back to the same dynamic. In China, the government controls the corporations. In America, the corporations control the governments. One is on a downtrend. The other one is on a massive upswing. Which do you prefer?
Cavities. Far less for dentists to do. Was it terrible when electric light got invented? Terrible for the candle makers. So there's this thing that lets people buy things for lower cost. Should you say that's terrible? I think the whole way of framing the question is wrong. Now, I'm making it simpler than it is. There is an issue. It's called, which economists call predatory pricing, which is the idea.
Yeah, when Amazon does it, there's nothing that we can do, and it's actually good. When China does it, that's not good. And he's right. It is predatory pricing, for the record. But under normal market, free market conditions, you're supposed to, as a fucking government, okay, you're the American government. What do you mean China is doing predatory pricing to you? Are you insane? Subsidize our fucking industries then, and also ensure that our industries also have a race to the bottom in terms of prices, not in terms of wages, because you can also do that as well. You just have to drop the profit incentive out of the equation. Nationalize our key manufacturing industries, nationalize our extraction industries, and also in the process, control your economy. Actually control it. Do not let your economy be captured by the whims of the market for profit seekers that will always care about profit above all else. But we won't do that. That's never going to happen. We'll just keep coping and saying, look, China is so poor. The average working condition in China is significantly worse than America. Okay, adjust that to 20 years ago for the average Chinese worker versus now, and then look at American average worker living conditions and living standards 20 years ago versus now, 30 years ago versus now, 40 years ago versus now. Where the fuck was China 50 years ago versus where they're at now? Look at America and the average worker in the United States of America 50 fucking years ago. And I don't mean like the bounties of affordable treats. I mean like literally being able to purchase shit, the purchasing power that you have, upward social mobility. 50 years ago versus now. China doesn't nationalize their firms and industries. They create a series of firms and make them knife fight to survive. Yeah, except it doesn't matter because ultimately the government still controls all of it. So when push comes to shove and there's something that they've done that is annoying to them, or they've destabilized the markets and have moved away from the vision of the government, they fucking knife the company. Evergrande is a great example of this. Look at what happened with Evergrande. They are de facto nationalized. That's why I say China uses capitalism as a sleeve, okay? Also, isn't it funny? Or is it Evergreen? Evergrande, isn't it? I keep fucking up the name of the goddamn real estate company. Yeah, no, it's Evergrande. I said it right. It's not Evergreen. Yeah, they use capitalism as a glove, okay? They wear capitalism. They basically present themselves as a nation with markets, a nation that cares about capitalist competition. And in certain instances, they use market conditions as well for competition. It's just funny to consider that everything that you say in America, like normal concepts that you think about here in the United States of America that you've normalized in your mind, you have a very scary word for it over there, okay? We have slavery in our prison systems. They have gulags. We have normal free market competition. They have knife fights. Think about that. It's always, even if they're doing the same exact shit that we're doing, or doing things at a much lower degree, we greatly elevate and they have propaganda. We have PR. I don't ask you to, immediately adopt the framework that I'm presenting to you. Immediately adopt the framework that I'm presenting to you. I want you to simply reconsider. I want you to reconsider how you look at these things, okay? Yeah, we have industry leaders in the form of billionaires. They have oligarchs. That's it. I want you to reconsider the framing that you have adopted.
That somebody will sell things at a really low price, then they'll drive all their competitors out of business, and then they'll jack the price way up. And so if you thought that all of this was sort of setting us up for the kill in terms of total dependence on China, that would be an argument that might lead you to want to have a policy. It's pretty hard to make that case with respect to the vast number of things we're importing. China is only one source of them. If the price did get jacked up, our producers could re-enter the market. In the entire history of economics, there have been almost no examples documented of where predatory pricing actually happened. There's an argument you can make that is about dependence, perhaps with respect to really sensitive technologies. We don't want to depend on China because then they might cut us off and their government might take control, and that might be bad for our national security. And there are a lot of things to do about that. We should stockpile more things than we do. There are probably some areas like semiconductors where we should be investing in developing domestic capacity. But that's not an argument that because they're making something available cheap, it's cheating and you should have a policy. So I'd reject the entire way in which you framed the question.
Actually,
what year is this video from? Probably recent. Thanks to the dollar reserve status, to quote Summers' rhetorical question, if China wants to sell us things at really low price and the transaction is we get solar collectors and we get batteries, that we get a bad deal for us. Characterizing this as cheating, like Summer rightly says, should be rejected entirely. At the end of the day, who's more cheated? The party doing the hard work of producing goods at very low prices? Who is this guy? Just some random squishy socialist, dude. The video's from yesterday. Just a famous Maoist by the name of Larold H. Summers. Did you hear Trump isn't removing the Israel tariff? Trump is off the leash. My goat. He's doing BDS to Israel. That's right. He said he's going to dismantle the Zionist entity. My king. Comrade Summers, dude. Anyway, this framing of China as the good guy here makes no sense at all. What are you even talking about? China using capitalism as a sleeve? China is communist, period. Now that I think, what would help make a better analogy is if I pretend to be capitalism and you pretend to be China and you could use me as a sleeve. I mean, what? Who said that? Not me. Okay, Jesus Christ, Chad. You know, jerk off. Holy shit. Politico reports that Trump is appending his trade team. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is now taking the lead with Peter Navarro sidelined and Howard Lutnick recast as the bad cop. Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs.
Specifically around China. Megan.
Hey, David, absolutely. I just got off the phone with a White House official, and they need to clarify that the new effective tariff rate against China.
Chatter's branded law. China has hardly been truly communist since the Deng era. Yeah, I know, dude. Yes, you have a real method for a transitional socialist state. You just haven't implemented it yet here in the United States of America. But fucking look alive, everybody. When Chatter H. Tom PK23 implements and institutes real transitional socialism in his grand vision, everyone will say, that's it. Any day now, he's going to bring it. I'm not saying that's necessary, bro, bad, bro, damn. No one thinks China is a fucking communist state. What are you talking about? China is not a communist state. China is, in their words, a transitional socialist state that is reacting to market forces, global trade, and the material conditions that exist currently. Also, learning from the mistakes of the USSR, former transitional socialist states that have perished. Conservatives do? No, they don't, because when push comes to shove, everyone will literally present how bountiful capitalism has been to China. They literally will say, they will turn around and say, capitalism has uplifted billions of people, eradicated global poverty. That's China. They're only talking about Chinese statistics. Remove China from the equation, and the global south across the board is not better off than they were prior to the uplifting. How can the Communist Party not be communist? There has literally never been a singular communist party in the history of communism that has actually been able to implement communism. That's not a thing. Communism is supposed to be the ultimate goal to arrive at. It is not what is happening right now. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, I know. The French Commune. Okay, shut up. We're not talking about that. This is not a no true Scotsman argument either. This is just literally the delusions of the people on the opposing side of the argument. I have no further questions. Okay. This isn't like cope to be like true communism hasn't been tried or implemented. It's like the Chinese government doesn't say they've implemented communism. They say they're a transitional socialist state that works within the current confines of global finance capital with Chinese characteristics.
China effective today is actually 145%, not 120.
Like, yeah, we have a communist party here. We have multiple communist parties here in the United States of America. Do we have communism? No.
5%, as they told us yesterday. This is not a new shift. This is based, I want to make clear, on a close reading of the executive order. I have it here. When they amended their executive order yesterday, they changed the rate, the reciprocal rate, so-called, from 84% to 125%. But that comes on top of the fentanyl rate that was already in place this term of 20% against China. So a White House official confirmed to me it is correct to add those numbers together, making taking the new rate that President Trump has added in tariffs against China so far this term to 145%. A big jump there from where we thought we were even yesterday and the start of the week as well. These numbers just keep increasing. And as you guys know, you do have to add that 145% to any tariffs that were already in place before President Trump took office this term. That's the Section 301 tariffs from his first term, as well as anything else that was already in place at baseline. But now the new rate, when you add all these figures together.
I find it really funny that Trump just like flies off the handle and we'll just make new numbers up. I respect that. I mean, it's good to be the king, you know? Just fuck it. YOLO. Make up new shit. Be like, yep, 300. I've decided 300% tariffs. I've decided 400% tariffs. Respect. Bigger number, bigger tariff. He's killing it.
For this term that they've added against China is 145% on Chinese imports.
Why do you support moving manufacturing to America but not support Trump's tariffs? I don't know, because I'm not a fucking moron. Because if you don't build a manufacturing base here in the United States of America, there is no trade to protect. There is no manufacturing to protect in that process, don't you think?
Imports. Guys.
Megan, a very important clarification. Thank you for that. It does make you wonder, yeah, because I think the broad assumption was 125% included, perhaps, the 20% already from fentanyl. I asked this question earlier of Eamon, but I'd love to ask it of you as well. In terms of exemptions, we were talking to an analyst earlier, of course, about Apple, where it may really be so important for a company like that to get an exemption, given how many iPhones are made in China. Do we have any expectations do you have any reporting around what may or may not happen when it comes to that?
The best that we know is that the president said yesterday he was willing to consider some exemptions for some companies, but he didn't want to give any specifics on what it would require. So we don't know anything further than that. We know that Tim Cook has been in touch with this White House, in touch with this president. He's been down to Mar-a-Lago, been trying to win some of those exemptions here, as have other companies. But we just don't know yet. What I will say, despite just how high this China tariff is, now even higher than we initially thought, there is some more optimism now because companies like Apple that have production in other countries as well, they can at least move around. But I will say that, you know,
every number is made up. The tariff number is made up. It keeps increasing. The number of investment is totally made up. Every other day, Donald Trump will be like, we have gotten $5 quintillion from Apple. Tim Apple called me yesterday, said we're donating $5 quintillion. Numbers like you've never heard. Numbers you've never seen before. Everything's computer. Every day, billionaires are calling me saying, Mr. President, I'm going to give you $7 trillion. That's right.
There was softer language from the president yesterday that at least he's considering exemptions. We didn't get that before. And if passed is
1 million countries have called me. Countries you've never heard of. Lesotho. They called me. They said, Penguin Island. They called me. They said, Mr. President, the penguins are reeling with the tariffs. We will buy American. The penguins want to drive F-150s, Mr. President. Numbers you've never heard of. Cambodia. They called me. They said, Mr. President, please bomb us more. We love the bombs. We love it. We will buy the bombs that you will use on us, Mr. President.
His prologue in the first term, we did get some. So I would expect a lot more to come on that front.
I mean, a few things. The rate is so...
The duality of chat. This terrible impression is part of why I dislike you personally. Your Trump impression is one of my favorites, Lamau. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the 22-month subscriber.
Gargantuan compared to, first of all, the other tariff rates that we have and everything else. It makes me think that they're bringing them to the table to a deal, because at some point it's just unsustainable to have trade this way. And then their tariff rates now on our exports into China are what? Above 80%?
84, right?
They're at 84%, yep. And they're doing all these other things. The TikTok deal, for example, is on ice. The president acknowledged that yesterday. The companies that have all been added to the...
Yeah. Man, dude, this man is going to make everyone under the age of 35 a fucking Maoist. Okay? I swear to God. 1, destroying global trade, but simply trying to fuck China over, causing a massive inflationary crisis. and then simultaneously taking away one of the major treats that China has given to everyone, especially under the age of 35. Yo, the children will rise up as fucking Maoists, dude. Play the song.
Le Vietnam brûlé, moi je hurle Mao, Mao. Johnson.
What? I don't know what this song is, but I don't think this is that in French? Yes. This is from a Godard satire about idiot leftists in France. La chinoise plutôt à la chinoise un film en train de se faire. The Chinese, or rather, in the Chinese manner, a film is making, commonly referred simply as La Chinoise, is a French political docu-fiction film written and directed by Jean-Luc Godard about a young group of Maoist activists in Paris. La Chinoise is a loose adaptation of Fyodor Dostoevsky's 1872 novel Demons, also known as Le Possessed. Yes, everybody knows what this is. I don't know what this is. I am unfortunately a brute. Le brute. Le chinois. La chinois. Plutôt à la chinois un film entraîne des affaires. Your French accent violates the Geneva Convention. Anyway.
Blacklist, the entities list. I saw a headline this morning that China's buying some soybeans from Brazil. That's a hit to U.S. farmers. So China can do a lot more. I agree with you that I think with rates this high, you would think there have to be negotiations, and potentially we'll see those in the coming days. But I've been kind of amazed over the past few days just how little conversation has been going on between the U.S. and China. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of dialogue at this point. We've seen the tit for tat escalating without the leaders, at least, getting on a phone call.
美方仍在对中国滥施关税，对这种霸。
Lin Jian getting incredible amounts of TV time. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian coming out once again swinging. The United States is still imposing tariffs on China, he says. And China is firmly opposed to such bullying. China will absolutely not accept pressure, threats, and blackmail. This is what he said yesterday and the day prior. That is not the right way to deal with China. If the U.S. really wants to talk, it should show an attitude of equality, respect, and reciprocity. If the United States ignores the interests of the two countries and the international community and insists on fighting a tariff war and a trade war, China will certainly accompany it to the end. The United States, driven by selfish interests, has weaponized tariffs as a means of exerting maximum pressure and seeking unilateral benefits. This severely infringes upon the legitimate rights and interests. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think that J.D. Vance calling Chinese peasants, calling the entire Chinese manufacturing base like peasants, did a real number. Like that was definitely the wrong move. I'm serious. I feel like that's one of those things where, you know, you're fucking up the bag. You think you can behave in this undiplomatic manner because you're sitting atop this throne, but you can dookie on Ukraine all day, every day. That's a very different equation than saying that to China. Especially China, considering its history, especially considering the motivations. It got people here in Europe angry, and that's weird because we racist as fuck. Constitutes a grave violation of the World Trade Organization rules, seriously undermines the rules-based multilateral trading system, and poses a major threat to the stability of the global economic order. It is a blatant act that defies international norms and runs counter to the entire world. Speaking of cutting the throat, the U.S. threats and blackmail against the rest of the world with tariffs is a real attempt to choke the throat of other countries and bully them into making a compromise or concessions. The relationship between China and Spain is a vital component of the relations between China and the EU. Last year, the total trade between China and Spain topped US $50 billion, and China and Spain's exports to China grew by 4.3%. In recent years, the bilateral cooperation on the new energy industry has boosted green and low-carbon development. This is China's response to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that Spain is getting closer to China is like cutting your own throat. That's what Scott Bessent said, and this is their response. The two countries maintain communication in the multilateral cooperation and jointly uphold the international system. With the UN at its core and the WTO-centered multilateral trading system, just like the friendly ties between China and other countries, the cooperation between China and Spain always serves a driving force for both countries' economic growth and delivers tangibly for the two peoples and contributes to world stability and development. Europe stands with China. Eurasia will rise. Don't you dare call us U.S. vassals. We hate you guys much more than China. Yeah, you, as the average European citizen, might, but your leadership demonstrates a totally different set of standards. Okay? This is what you must understand. Although we have this notion where European countries that are supposed to maintain this liberal democracy, the attitude towards liberal democracy, that they are supposed to protect liberal democracy. Liberal democracy, I think, has its limitations, clearly. I think more and more people will come to that conclusion that your leadership actually does not represent your values. As contradictions heighten, you will recognize that you are not all that different from a Gulf nation, for example. You are not all that different, that simply liberal democracy has been a lie. Here in the United States of America, the only thing that stops us from recognizing this reality is affordable treats, is treat affordability. As long as there is seemingly the feeling that conditions are getting better because treats are more accessible than ever before, and we can keep purchasing cheap TVs year over year, we forget that a lot of our material needs are not met by our government, regardless of how much we want them. And I think this is a reality that other countries will soon have to come to terms with as well. The interests of the public are not met by the so-called public servants that you elect into positions of power. All right, let's look at Chamath talking about or actually, you know what? Before we look at Chamath, I want to talk about Adin Ross, who a couple days prior was reeling from the impact that this Trump tariff initiative had on his stocks. One day of the market turning green, and Adin Ross has a different attitude overall.
The tariff shit is a really good thing. All these other countries got tariffs on us. Be patient. Let him fix the country. The country's sick. Let him take his medicine, and the country's gonna get fixed.
How is this any different than what like Asmongold says? You know what I mean? How is this any different than what all of the smart economists say that are invested in defending Donald Trump? All you got to do is just repeat what Donald Trump is saying. That's it. The only difference is Aiden doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. That's the only difference. The output is still the same.
Like, you guys see the stock market? Boom, green, just like that. Like, it's like, come on, bro. Like, I'm just being real with you guys, bro. You understand why he's a good president? Because no president's ever dropped nuts like that. Like, bro, that's why we're respected, bro. Motherfuckers can't bitch us around and punk us. I'm being real. Stop. We all voted for him. Believe in our president, bro. Believe in our president. You don't gotta like me. You don't even gotta like Trump. But he's your president. So respect him, bro. He's in office. All right? It's really true. The tariff shit's good as fuck. All these other countries do it to us. Like,
he has absolutely no idea what the fuck he's saying here. And I want to maintain my position on this. Many people that try to go out and defend Donald Trump's actions here, they also don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They are also completely oblivious. They're just simply repeating what they have heard. What is this? Dave Chappelle bringing Chinese jobs back to America.